There's a lot of things to say about gaming in these past couple years, one of which being just a general overall improvement of how a game feels. We had Baldur's Gate 3, which literally revolutionized how we can play a game with its Dungeons and Dragons feel, and I still need to complete a save of, as well as Lethal Company being one of the most easily accessible games to understand how it feels to live in a corporate hellhole. You know, the Elden Rings, showing you how difficult and yet interesting a game could be, and Helldivers being the goofiest game out of the ones I've mentioned. But then we flipped the coin, revealing the games marked with that kind of content I just so love talking about on my channel. These games have a couple of things in common, one of which I have to censor to post this video on YouTube. Another of which is that there's a lot of games marked with this type of content tag, like Peggle Extreme. So I'm talking about games that fit the first thing the most. And I've picked out 10 games, not the best or anything, just normal games with some kind of content to them that isn't just a glorified visual novel. For obvious and some not so obvious reasons, I won't be talking about all the games shown on screen right now. This one in particular, my friend Goobs did a way better video that I'll leave linked in the description that I also star in. The others being a massive series, a cash grab for horny people, and or just generally being terrible to play. So let's just start, and where better to than the one I've probably spent the most time on and the most popular one, honeypop. honeypop is a unique sim experience for PC, Mac, and Linux. It's a gameplay first approach that's part dating sim, part puzzle game, with light RPG elements, a visual novel style of presentation, an abrasive Western writing style, and plenty of plot. And well, it's pretty much exactly that. With a gameplay style similar to every white mother's favorite game, and about every character stereotype you'd see in a dating sim out there, honeypop, in my opinion, has cemented itself as the sauce game, with even Markiplier playing it. In fact, he's played a few games that I'm talking about in this video, which is honestly surprising. Released back in 2015, it was the first ever game from the studio HoneyPot. For this game, you're either a loser guy or a loser girl who gets absolutely no play, so much so that this fairy comes and decides to give you a phone to not only track girls you meet, but also see what their likes and dislikes are. Not creepy in the slightest, I know. So you begin chatting up these girls, taking them on dates, and eventually doing the deed with them. Chatting with them is usually either learning new info about them or them quizzing you on that info. And dates include matching up these token sort of things, as well as hearts, which level up how much tokens give, teardrop things called sentiment, and bells, which give you an extra move if you match them up. Each girl has a different token they like and dislike, and they give different values depending on that. If a girl dislikes a token, then they'll give you less points if they like it, sort of thing. Eventually you run into broken hearts, which when matched will subtract from the score, which you don't want to do, so how can you avoid it? Well, there's these things called date gifts that you can give a girl based on how much sentiment you have, and other gifts you give them while chatting. Get a successful date, and you get a heart with that character to level them up along with a photo of them, and do the same process 4 times, and you get it on with that character. With the gameplay for that being much of the same, but this time you just keep matching no matter what. Originally, there's 8 girls to choose from. The hot teacher, French, the only reason I know the color fuchsia, a literal porn star, Wego Gym, the only bearable part of flying, average league player, and the person who reminds the teacher of homework. Each of these girls are just base, you meet them through a series of events at the start. But notice how I said originally, because there's technically 12 girls in total throughout the game, and you can meet the extra 4 in various ways. The first is the fairy, who wants in on the action after you smash for the first time. The next is a cat girl, who you can date after discarding a goldfish. I'm not kidding. Then we have an alien girl, who you can get by giving the fairy a Playboy, and she'll give you an object which you take to the beach at night. And the final girl is a literal goddess, which you need to have a good time with every non-secret girl to even see, appearing as a sort of final boss. But gameplay wise, it's just a bunch of the same. You're just playing Candy Crush. That's it. An upside, however, is that you can play this game while shaking hands with the unemployed. This game just kind of skyrocketed the entire idea of a sauce game, and even if it is kind of repetitive, it's fun. The character interactions, depending on the situation, is interesting to see, even if the entire premise is just Candy Crush but sauce. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Not too special, but definitely interesting. Up next is a game called Ambrosia, and I want to talk a bit about the company behind it, because the company is Kagura Games. See, in the industry for these sauce games, Kagura is one of the most known companies for just putting out shovelware constantly, something with no substance or anything behind it. But Ambrosia is probably one of the best games they've come out with, almost playing into the stereotypes and other influences the other games have put out. And the concept is pretty basic. In Ambrosia, you play as Flood, a priestess dedicated to serving the god of light, who, after getting caught up in a scandal, gets exiled to a desolate island to spread faith. And after meeting a flower monster girl she names Lafleur, trying her best to be a good priestess. But Lafleur gets captured by a group of adventurers who are hired by a big boss man who will give her back to you when they find the treasures of this goddess named Noir. You don't know who that is, so the village chief tells you that that was just a legend. But lo and behold, the goddess is in a cave behind the shrine you inhabit, and not only tells you where they are, but also gives you her blessing. And then starts a gameplay loop of you trying to get Lafleur back, so you fight monsters, do missionary work, and also plummet into a sort of deviant. Fighting in this game is a turn-based system with magic. Almost like another game I know. Each monster has a weakness, and you have to do magic based on that. And it's just a generic turn-based game. However, there is an upside to it, and that you can play it while polishing the chrome dome. But I don't know, it's like a 7.5 out of 10 for me, just don't check my hours on it. Next is a game my friend sent me off itch.io called Another Chance. Now, before I go contradicting myself on this one, hear me out. It's from the developers over at Time Wizard Studio, and is, in their words, a game about choices and redemption, love and lust, and living out your fantasies. Starring a 20-something waste of space going nowhere, and through a series of events, is granted another chance at life. Which, the story is just that. You go around school talking and completing quests with different girls and slowly increasing your relationships with them. But what makes this one different from literally any other dating sim you could find is that, in my opinion, it's way more polished and gives you the opportunity to do stuff at your own pace, not forcing you into anything until you're ready to do such. Also, this little energy bar where if you move around enough and click on enough things will deplete, and once depleted it'll just move to the next hour, which I think that's just a nice touch. For a majority of this game, you just go around doing different quests, but there's something deeper going on. There's a moment of hysteria as we go around doing stuff for a car wash, as we just forget what happened before going into a fall semester with a new girl. But that's where it sits, as the game's still in development and still figuring out what's happening in this world. And because it's just a dating sim, you can play the one-man band while playing this game. But Another Chance is one of the most interesting types of games in its genre, and I'm really interested in seeing where it goes from here. 8 out of 10. For the next two games, let's switch it up a bit. See, I may not seem like it, but I am a massive fan of horror as a genre. One of my favorite movies of all time is Terrifier, with the little goofball Art the Clown. And my favorite game from the genre being the horror game franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's. So I did some digging and found two games that aren't only parodies of FNAF, but are also risky to show on YouTube. And the first one up is the closest to FNAF, Five Nights at Fuzzbadonkers, which plays exactly as the game, with this being the one exception. You take a job at a pizza strip club as a night guard, and you have to survive 5 nights without getting a surprise from the animatronics. The thing I like about this game, though, is how it looks. Everything in it seems hand-drawn and not rendered animatronics compared to the actual game, which just gives it extra points from me, as everything just seemed polished. Though some of those extra points are removed, since all you're doing is just playing FNAF for the most of it, surviving till 6 a.m. and just winning. And the only time something interesting happens is when you get caught, giving a scene for you to watch. And that's about it for gameplay, and you can do the solo tango while playing it. Honestly kind of fun as someone who's interested in the franchise. Just going back to original FNAF days is fun for me, and with that little added extra for it, it's just interesting. 6 out of 10, only really getting points for it being hand-drawn though. But I did mention that there was 2 FNAF parody games in this. Well, the second one is completely different. That game being Fap Nights at Freddy's. Now, the thing about this game is that it takes the concept of FNAF and just throws it out the door. Because instead of your objective being to just survive in an office, for this one you have to take on other duties like flushing the toilets, restocking, and cleaning. There is a sort of story to this game, but it isn't complete yet because, again, itch.io game, and there's still that survival aspect to this game. You have to watch each animatronic and make sure their timers don't finish, otherwise they roam freely. And God forbid you get caught, because oh no, they just so happen to. There are also these square puzzles which you can solve for money, and you can use that money to customize a bunch of stuff like character skins or buy items to access new parts of the map. Though because you have to do other duties and walk around interacting with your environment, both hands are needed to play this game, so no wrestling the one-eyed wonder for this one. But extra points because the developers of this game keep people posted about what's happening in updates, even including a Christmas one where you explore a maze running from a Futa Krampus. It's honestly kind of funny, with all the talking characters saying the funniest and yet realest lines I've heard in a Sauce game. Fap Nights at Freddy's, in my opinion, is an 8.5 out of 10 for a game that is still being developed, and could honestly be one of the most fun ones on this list. And that's about it for the horror section of this video. Now we can go back to the stuff you'd normally expect of these games. Body Pay is literally just piano tiles. Like, you play it almost exactly like piano tiles. From the developers over at Cheeseburger Studios, it's like if rhythm games were developed by Coomers. Oh, wait a second. In this game, the general gist of it is that there's an app that will let people have a good time instead of paying for items. Or this tag on screen for my viewers. That's it for story. Just 4 girls who pay with their bodies. Whoa, that's like the name of the game. You have the married MILF, the streamer, the Gyaru, and an office worker, each with their own very generic storyline. And the gameplay does get repetitive. Nothing changes between each girl besides what items they're buying. And it's just you playing, well, piano tiles. And just like piano tiles, you can play this game while giving yourself a high five down there, but it would just be really hard, no pun intended. It's like a 6.5 out of 10. It's too repetitive and just ultimately lackluster, with that score only being raised by the art. Next up is another game Markiplier played, Orc Massage. In this game, you play as an orc who does massages. Big shocker, I know. As for story, there's really none, or at least one that the protagonist cares about. But as for gameplay, you have to give girls a massage and hit the right spots in order to complete levels. There's 3 modes for massaging that you can go. 1 to focus on a single area, 1 to focus on the closest 3, and 1 to correct your mistakes if you go over. Those modes, however, are only for the VIP girls, which when you do a good enough job on, can lead to special massages I can't show on YouTube. And there's also a rhythm part of this game for making extra money. As for characters, there's a hot elf, a hot bird, a hot tiger, a hot mermaid, and soon to be a hot dragon. Each girl does kind of have their own storyline, but like it's literally nothing, and like I said, there's no storyline the orc is interested in. However, you can't really play this game while charming the snake either, unless we're talking special massages. Now, I found this game from Markiplier and thought it was hilarious that he played it on his channel, so I decided to check it out for myself. It was honestly kind of fun and soothing, not in that way. Just the massage mechanics were soothing for me, and I did enjoy playing through the game, even if it was bordering on the line of furry content. I give it a 9 out of 10, and it's still being developed with new characters being added. The next game I want to talk about is Kaiju Princess. Now, I showed this game in a previous video, and only true fans will know it because it's from a meatloaf.
Oh. Well, let's hope they're of age. Do not press the arrow after pressing that. Don't.
But I want to talk about this game more in depth. Kaiju Princess is about a guy who takes in a girl to stay with him from an app. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of kaiju attacks happening. And as it turns out, the girl you took in is the ruler or something of these kaijus. and you work with her to completely demolish the world. And that's it for story, so let's talk about gameplay. For the most part, the gameplay consists of you having to attack places, and each place giving you a different value. That value will be added to a total that has to reach a threshold by a deadline. Do this for about 6 deadlines or so, and that's it. Game done and you win. And all while you're doing this, you try to better your relationship with your kaiju roommate slash girlfriend, and also take care of her and your living space. And you know the drill at this point. It's a game where you just have to interact through clicking, meaning you can spank the monkey while playing. When I play this, I sat down and beat it, the game, not my meat, in like 2 hours, and it didn't take long to play, with the gameplay being repetitive. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It isn't the best, but it isn't too bad, and definitely carried by how cute the kaiju girl is. Up next is a random game I found off Steam called Isekai Quest. This is the second game I'm talking about in this video to be similar to Candy Crush, but this time with a twist. Isekai Quest is a game where the main character gets isekai'd. Shocker there. And of course, his first thought is to start an isekai harem. That's all there is for story. The gameplay is Candy Crush. You just try to match up as many things as possible while also not dying yourself. The girls include a hot succubus demon, an elf lolly, the hot witch, Nagatoro, the big-breasted knight, the royal guard, and a nun. Each girl has a different effect they can give you while you're playing that do different things. For example, the succubus can give you a leech effect, slowly draining your HP over time if you don't get rid of them. And as a concept, it's pretty cool, and I think it was executed well, even if it's a game where you can punch the clown while playing. So yeah, it's a 7 out of 10 at best, for right now at least, as it can definitely go places, but it's not for me right now. Now, the last game I want to talk about today is a game called Peeping Dorm Manager. And this game is definitely something, I'll tell you what. For the story, you get put in a management position at a girl's dorm, and, well, peep on them. There's a bunch of mini games and other stuff involved while taking care of the building and other landlord stuff. For the most part though, there's 2 girls throughout that you interact with. One is a girl dependent on her boyfriend who just isn't around, and the other being a streamer who's the mean one of the 2. You slowly learn more and more about these characters by learning keywords to Google, improving your relationship with the girls throughout the entire game. Though one mess up and you get taken away by a South Park character. Because while I did explain the majority of this game, how the character you play uses these is pretty underhanded, because he uses those keywords to coax and / or coerce both the girls to their backs, completely 180ing from the lighthearted pranks seen in stuff like horny comedy movies. Yeah, he's just generally not a good person, and the game kind of makes it clear. But still, you play as him doing these acts, and pretty much anything he does is illegal. But hey, funny boing boing, I guess. 5 out of 10. A kind of sour way to end this video, I know, but I was having trouble finding games because I mainly play Super Mario Odyssey and Elden Ring. In all honesty, I don't know how to end off this video though. This was definitely a step in a different direction for my type of content, and I don't know if it'll do well or not while writing this script. All the games I listed today, I honestly really enjoyed, besides the last one. Not because they have material you can yank the chain to, but because they can get you connected into this world you're placed in some way or another. A lot of them have stuff I'm interested in as a concept, like the FNAF games and Another Chance. And I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. Links to all the games I talked about will be in a paste bin in the description if you want to check them out for yourselves after this video, and if you want to support the developers of them. But for now, that's all I got. I'll see you in the next one.
Attack on Titan, Tokyo Ghoul. These hentai babes make me drool. Hatsune Miku is great. She makes me masturbate. Fairy tale.